Now, say my name.
The Rolling Bad Podcast.
You're goddamn right.
Welcome to the Rolling Bad Podcast, bringing you the latest Age of Sigmar coverage from the Southwest United States.
That's right, folks. This is episode number 1 of the Rolling Bad Podcast, coming to you from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the home of Walter White and Breaking Bad. You might notice that from our graphic and all the great stuff that we have on our website. In this episode, we're going to introduce ourselves, and we're going to talk about what makes us want to do a podcast. We're going to cover some new items that have come out for Age of Sigmar and other game systems. We're going to have an interview with the man who is running the Slobberknocker GT out in Oklahoma City in, July?
Yep.
So we're going to cover a few things, a few segments, and we really hope you enjoy it. Please, whatever you do, leave us comments, and we will take what you have to say to heart. In segment number 1, we're going to do introductions. We're going to introduce ourselves so that you have a little bit of background about who we are. Who wants to go first? We're all pointing at Elric.
All right, I'll go first. My name is Elric Edge, and I've been playing Age of Sigmar since, back when it first came out. But I've been playing Games Workshop games for a very long time. I originally got in on 40K Epic back when I was 9 or 10 years old, and somebody let me run a Land Speeder or a Storm Raven. I don't even remember what it was. I dropped a Flamer template on a bunch of weird dudes with mohawks, killed them, and then somebody shot me out of the sky, and I left the game store. But years later, I saw many more cool models for fantasy and 40K. I got into fantasy for a brief bit back in 5th edition and left it. Got into 40K for 3rd through 5th, 6th edition. I don't even know anymore. I've stopped playing for a while now, unfortunately, and devoted my time and, more importantly, my wallet to fantasy. And when Age of Sigmar dropped, I was excited but also tentative, and when it did land, it destroyed everything in its path as far as the community goes here in Albuquerque. But James and I continued to try to hold it together, and then we found Bill, and here we are making a podcast. And I want to touch briefly on kind of what the podcast is about, and what we're trying to do here is create a focal point for the gaming community here in the Southwest, and to let people know that there are people that live down here, and it is a part of the United States of America, and that we want to build the community not just here in New Mexico, but also in the surrounding states. That's why we have an interview later with Ken Eubanks with the Slobberknocker, because Oklahoma City, being 8.5 hours away, is actually considered a local GT for in the Southwest. So we definitely want to promote that, and anything else that's in Colorado or Texas or Arizona. And eventually here, we would like to do something once the waters settle after the General's Handbook lands and what have you. So that's me in a nutshell. I don't want to go into too much detail of all the games and everything I've played, but I'll admit it right up front that I'm a fanboy, and if it's got a GW stamp on it, I'll probably pick it up, or at least wish I could. So anybody else?
James?
My name is James Tapia. I've been playing Warhammer since around 2000. I was in the game store watching some people play. The owner of the store was playing Bretonnians, and as soon as I saw those Bretonnians, I knew I had to play Warhammer.
And they haven't been updated since.
Pretty much.
That was the death of them right there.
Yep, James killed them.
So, picked up Bretonnians, played those for a while. I've played all kinds of armies. I've had Orcs and Goblins, Tomb Kings, Warriors of Chaos, Demons, High Elves, Dark Elves, Wood Elves, you name it, I've played it. Played for about 4 or 5 years, got out of the hobby, went to college, other stuff like that. Got married, came back into the hobby about 3 years ago. Found Elric and some buddies playing Warhammer 8th edition in the game store. And
Oh, yeah, the good old days.
Yep, joined the group. We went to tournaments. Several of them were here in the Southwest, mainly in Denver. We played that for a while. When Age of Sigmar dropped, kind of killed the community, like Elric mentioned. But me and him stuck it out. Been trying to build this community back up. We have a pretty decent gaming group we play with every Friday night.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent. I think we rebounded quite well.
Not bad. I mean, we just ran a tournament a month or two ago, and we had 8 players, which was almost what we were.
Yeah,
in
just
8th
just a couple shy of our peak 8th edition numbers, so pretty good.
That's me in a nutshell.
Well, can I just be a jerk? And I want to ask you about your painting because I've seen your armies and they're amazing. Talk to me a little bit about your art and your painting, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, when I was in the games where I saw it, actually was playing Mage Knight, an old WizKid game,
Yeah.
where the miniatures were already painted, and I kind of got bored of that and wanted to do my own thing. So I started digging around, repainting those miniatures, and then, like I said, when I found out the Games Workshop stuff, you can build it and paint it from scratch. You don't have to worry about trying to take off that cheap paint job that they have on there.
Oh god, yeah.
It was having. I've been pretty artistic for most of my life. Kind of went to school for that. Kind of comes, I don't want to say naturally, but it's one of my favorite things about the hobby is painting for sure. And when I look back at my old stuff, of course, everyone starts somewhere. You're not going to be a master the first time you put paint to a model. I've been doing it for 16 years roughly.
Yeah.
So that's just practice.
Yeah.
And even when I got back into the hobby 3 or 4 years ago, it wasn't that great. But after every army, I try to do something new, try to do something different, try to improve something, try to hit that next goal for myself.
And it shows, you've won some Best Painted in Denver at various tournaments up there.
Yep.
When you look at the show notes, one of the things you'll see is James's Twitter feed and everything else, and he does pretty regular updates on his painting, and you'll see how good he is. Okay, I'm the relative newcomer to the group here. I'm Bill Costello. I got my start with GW back when I was living in Europe. They were just releasing this game called Rogue Trader, and I got into that because, well, at first I thought they were a bunch of jerks. Then I realized this was a lot of fun. I'm actually a board and counter kind of war game guy, but when I saw what the miniatures were and how much fun you could have playing it, I got into it whole hog. That was really what they call second edition 40K. Took a break after I got back in the 90s, probably about a 15-year break. Got back into 40K in a big way. When they announced the end times that were coming out for fantasy, I didn't know what the heck to expect. And I kind of felt bad for the fantasy guys because it was pretty much the end of the world for them. And then when Age of Sigmar dropped and I looked at that box set, I was completely hooked. I just could not believe how cool the Stormcast Eternals or Sigmarines were. Just absolutely beautiful. Bought the box set. And I literally, for months, I thought I was the only guy in New Mexico that had anything to do with Age of Sigmar. I didn't even know there was a group playing. And everybody plays at the game store that I always go to. So I pretty much have my head in the sand. So I got hooked up with these guys, and it's been a hell of a ride ever since. We had a pretty great eye-opening tournament for me not too long ago, and we're going to cover that here in just a second. There was a tournament, and we got together, and we all decided, hey, you know what? We've all wanted to do a podcast, so let's get together and do that. So that's what we decided we were going to do. That's why we're here right now.
So I just want to mention real quick that I know in our introductions we've talked about a lot of 40K. It tends to go hand in hand with fantasy and Age of Sigmar as well at this point. This is an Age of Sigmar centric podcast. It's what we will be covering.
Oh, yeah.
It's what we enjoy greatly. That being said, we will touch on 40K from time to time. We all play it to varying degrees, whether that's once a month or once an edition. But we'll touch on the new releases and stuff that Games Workshop puts out for both systems, because there can be a lot of crossover, for terrain and
Especially models with demons.
Yeah, exactly, or for conversions and things like that. So we'll touch on releases, and we'll probably mention maybe the occasional game of 40K, or if James is painting something geared for that system as well, because he's the guy that paints. But it will be an Age of Sigmar centric podcast.
And now, the Take My Money GW segment, or What's New This Week. Okay, the first thing up on our What's New is not so much what's new, because it's actually a few weeks old, but it's the Warhammer Quest Silver Tower box set from GW. Just going to cover this because my wife and I just played the first game. I finally got the miniatures built, and my God, we had a great time playing that. Now, she's not a big-time GW. She plays Skaven and Tyranid, but she's not super into it. She loves the painting part, but she had such a great time playing that game, and she's actually been asking me, when are we going to play the next one? So I really got to throw out a vote for that. Is a really fun game. There's a lot of competitive aspect to it. It's not just roll over and kill some bad guys. It scales up really, really well. It's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of room for expansion, too. The game comes with the scenario manual that's kind of like one of the old...
Choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventures, thank you. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure thing where, you go to certain rooms and you read certain passages and different things happen, as well as there's a lot of interplay with the different cards that are in the game. So every game is going to be completely different. You can play the same scenario 10 times and I don't think you'll ever see the same arrangement. So it's really great. But Elric, I think you wanted to say something about Silver Tower?
Just the models themselves are amazing, and the way almost everything is a single piece or a two-piece kit is great because it allows for new people to pick it up.
Yeah.
And it's also, I love the way that Games Workshop is incorporating it into Age of Sigmar, and that everything that's in the box has rules for Age of Sigmar, and all the character models, the majority of character models in Age of Sigmar have rules for Silver Tower, which is just, that's such a smart move on their part.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're talking about it has the potential for expansions, I wish I could remember who put up a picture on Twitter shortly after it came out of the original Warhammer Quest and just the tons of stuff that GW put out for that all those years ago. So I'm really hoping that they continue to do that, and I don't see why they wouldn't. It seems like the game has been a huge hit. It's all over everyone's Twitter feeds. It's all over Facebook. We all bought copies of it, and more people at the store bought copies of it. So
it's sold out, I think, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. The store bought 10 copies, and they all sold, and that's a big deal here in Albuquerque.
Yeah, it is.
So
that was Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. Moving on a little bit. GW just came out with a new line of paints. They came out with 3 different sets of paint. They came out with a metallic set of paints that are a lot like the Liberator Gold. They have the very fine pigment. They apply super smooth. First set of metallic paints from GW that you can actually airbrush with, so that's pretty amazing. But the one I wanted to talk about in a little bit of depth were the gemstone paints. Those things are absolutely amazing. And there's a little bit of confusion as to how those things work. The best thing to do, and the best thing I can tell you, is to go to the GW site, or I'm sorry, the GW YouTube page, where Duncan Rhodes gives like a 3-minute this is how you actually use it to paint a gem. And he gives the technique there. If you follow what he does, you'll be super... It's not Slayer Sword, Golden Demon stuff. You're going to have to really work at that. But for the average guy that wants to put a really good-looking model on the table, these paints are absolutely perfect for that. I absolutely love them, swear by them already.
And the videos that Games Workshop has been putting out detailing the paints and how to paint the various models that are coming out are incredibly comprehensive, and they're not intimidating like their old style of here's 3 photos of how a model goes from gray plastic to Golden Demon winning, and now you can do it too, which never worked out too well. So, but the videos are awesome, and if you have trouble finding them on YouTube, you can also go to the GW store, and any model that has a video on how to paint it, there's a link below where you can get the PDF free rules for it and whatnot. There'll be a link that'll take you to the YouTube video and how to paint that. So it's pretty useful.
Yeah, I've been finding those videos very useful, even for someone who paints a lot. Just even some of the tips that Duncan gives you for how to roll your brush into the paint. He even talks about why you're doing certain things with the brush or how the layer paints work. Those are thinner, so you use those. You're not going to use those to base coat a model and stuff like that. Just tips and tricks he gives you. And plus, I mean, they have the advent calendar in December.
Yeah.
And I know one of our friends is actually going to use the video on how to do the lava bases.
Oh, yeah.
And those are pretty amazing.
Yeah. I've only watched one of the videos, and that's, I believe her name is Emma.
Mm-hmm.
She painted the Maw Crusher, and that's the only video I've watched. And I'm not much of a painter. I have painted armies before over the course of the years, and my stuff is not phenomenal, but it'll get points. I watched that video, and I felt confident that I could replicate something similar just based off the simple steps that she was showing. So I would definitely recommend that for anybody, whether just getting into the hobby or somebody who's been doing it for a while.
Well, if you listen to Dave Whitek over there at Garage Hammer, He's been doing his Stormcast following the Duncan Rhodes method of painting them up, and they're coming out beautiful.
Right,
They're
and
just-
he's cranking them out
Yeah,
too.
he
I mean,
is.
30 Liberators is no small
That's
feat.
some work.
So
The other thing that we want to cover, and this is completely Age of Sigmar centric, and that is there is an upcoming event for Age of Sigmar coming down almost like the old days. So, did you guys want to talk about that real quick?
sure, the Season of War that begins on July 14th. Games Workshop has been hinting at it for the last couple weeks, and they kind of keep putting out a little more information for people who aren't sure what it is. And their little blurb here says, so what's a global campaign? The first Warhammer Age of Sigmar global campaign is your chance to influence the future of the mortal realms. To take part, you'll need to pledge your allegiance to one of the 4 grand alliances, assemble your forces, and play games. Whether a bitter skirmish or a sweeping engagement, every battle will count. You'll be able to report your victories to affect the course of the campaign. Your battles will matter like never before, so muster your forces now. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in 3rd edition 40K, yeah, they did an event for Eye of the Storm.
Eye of the Storm.
That's
that
right.
was it. Very good.
And they took people's feedback from that, and it dictated the story. And Eldrad Ulthuan, the leader of one of the Eldar Farseers, actually died in the fluff for a brief period until everything was
Till it was
retconned, as it does
retconned.
in 40K. But it was based on feedback of games that people were playing. Now, this was before the internet was really what it is now, and before GW really had the online presence and everything that they're embracing now. So it was kind of easily manipulated, and this was back when Chaos Space Marines were good.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty one-sided. But now this seems to be the same thing. And from what I've heard is that it all takes place in the realm of life, and all the games that people submit will dictate essentially what happens there in that realm, which I think is awesome. I'm very excited for this.
Oh yeah, this is, you brought it up. It's a throwback to the old days when GW used to be available to every player of the game. It's such an amazing turn of the company face. Ever since Age of Sigmar dropped, I've been super impressed with how they've approached everything. And this is going to be something. Now, granted, us down here in Albuquerque, we don't have a GW store. We're going to have to do all of our results through the store in Denver.
Right. So I've heard 2 different things. One, I've heard that they're doing a website, and you might be able to submit it there. I'm not
Hopefully.
sure. Obviously, come the 14th here in a couple days, they'll have everything fleshed out for us. I've also heard that you have to submit your results through a Games Workshop store, and for those of us who live in a wasteland nowhere near a Games Workshop store, I'm not sure how that's going to work. I've tried to keep in touch. The closest one is the one in Denver, technically in Boulder, which is substation of Denver. As far as I know, I think maybe we can submit our results up there, which would be really cool. So we're going to see how all that pans out once GW finally drops the other foot and lets us know what this whole thing, this whole party is about, which I'm very, very excited about.
Who are you going to be pledging your allegiance to?
WOG, Destruction. It's everything needs a good punching in the face. So yeah, sweet Iron Jaw models that just came out not too long ago.
Oh, sure. New shiny.
Yeah, I love the orcs. I've always loved the orcs. I play orcs in 40K. I got orcs and goblins for Age of Sigmar. So I would do the dwarves, but I don't have a dwarf army anymore.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Dwarden and Oryx. I guess we should get on that train right away. So yes, the Oryx is who I will be playing.
What about you, James? Who are you going to throw in with?
It's going to be a tough decision. I have my Stormcast, which I'm really liking at the moment. I have my filthy, dirty demons with about 15 flamers
Yeah.
that I can use. So it's going to be a toss-up. I've always been a chaos kind of guy, but the Stormcast might be good enough just to steal me away for that campaign.
And you, Bill?
Only the faithful, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, Stormcast Eternals, huh?
You betcha. If it's not for Sigmar, you ain't. Anyway. Sorry.
So that's what we know is coming out. we're gonna discuss a little bit on something else that we know is coming out. We just don't have a date for it yet, and that's the General's Handbook. And we want to discuss kind of briefly what we hope it may contain, and just kind of daydream about it a little bit here, because I think we're all incredibly excited, especially with the fact that it's going to be 3 separate sets of rules, the open play, which we haven't really exercised here, but I've heard that there are quite a few people who do prefer that style of game. The match play, which, you know, is supposed to give points and everything. We'll discuss that a little bit about, but to cut to the chase, I think what we're all very excited about is the narrative play. We can do open play or points, all that, and what have you. It's what we've always done, but the idea that we might be able to sink our teeth into a comprehensive campaign system set in these new realms and might give us rules on how to play. I know that there's already rules for like the Realm of Life and Realm of Fire.
Yeah, the Time of War rules are out there, but looking forward so much to that narrative system, even if it's just a way to link scenarios together and maybe have losses from this scenario count towards the next one. God, that is just so enthralling to me.
Well, they've discussed how you'll be able to kind of build your general like you used to in all the previous editions of Warhammer and customize someone you want, which I think is going to be awesome. It gives you that much more flavor, especially, you know, that's one of the beauties of Age of Sigmar is it just has so much flavor. You can build anything that you can think of because it can exist anywhere in any one of the realms, which is amazing. So to put some rules kind of behind that and creating your own characters and your own forces so that you and your friends can create your own stories is awesome. That's what I'm excited mostly for. And we've tried campaigns before with the Mighty Empires, and you know, they really don't give you a whole lot to work with in the pamphlet, and they did a little bit on their website, you know, and they also did the Blood in the Badlands, I think is what we tried to use as a guide. And
they start off strong and then they kind of teeter out towards the end there.
Well, I think the biggest problem we ran into is using the hex system, the map. When we started, everyone was in an area, and the way everyone moved around, you found yourself playing the same people over and over again. And if you couldn't beat them the first time, you know, then your characters and stuff start taking permanent wounds, etc., and you find yourself quickly on a losing battle, and anybody that could help you can't because they're pinned down by the same game, essentially, that they're playing over and over again. Obviously, there's ways to circumvent that if we were remotely creative. But we also did try to do it with something like 9 people, which is not probably the best way to start a campaign. We probably should have done it with like 4 and went from there. But again, GW really didn't give you much to work with to do that, unfortunately. I know the Blood in the Badlands had some fairly decent guidelines and whatnot, but I'm really hoping that this narrative aspect of the General's Handbook will lend itself to doing some very in-depth, fun campaigns.
Yeah, I'm really totally looking forward to that. The Planetary Empires came out same time as Mighty Empires, you know, and there were just so many drawbacks to that system that nobody really wanted to get into it. It was such a shame because it could have been fantastic. But again, like you said, they dropped the ball. They didn't keep going with it. So,
well, and especially with the Planetary Empires with 40K. Sorry to derail it shortly on 40K here, but back then they also had Battlefleet Gothic, and I remember there was a segment in a White Dwarf back when White Dwarfs did all these crazy storylines and stuff where they played games of Battlefleet Gothic that were incorporated in fighting over a giant asteroid that was done by the Hex map pieces, and then they would fight games of Kill Team or Combat Patrol at the time, and big games of regular 40K followed by a huge Apocalypse game. So you just take all these aspects of the same setting that has a couple different games set in it and just tie it into this really cool, huge story, and you know, it'd be that. Obviously, that's just what I want. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's just the idea that not only are they doing it, but they also threw it out to the guys from Facehammer, Heelan Hammer, you know, Ben Curry, Dan Heelan, all those guys got together and helped them, gave that outsider's opinion, the real gamer's opinion,
sure,
to help improve the General's Handbook. I mean, when has GW ever actually really thrown out to the general populace, how can we make this better? That's amazing.
Yeah, since I think it was maybe 3rd edition 40K.
Yeah.
Back when,
really?
You know, and we touched on that earlier with with their old Eye of Terror campaign. You know, that was kind of back when they when they interacted quite a bit with the
Yeah.
community, and it's wonderful to see them back doing that again.
Agreed.
Now, as far as the point system goes for the match play, I'm kind of with Ben Curry's school of thought on this, in that it would be very cool if it was an organic style thing. I'm not sure how they would manage that, and I won't entertain the idea of trying to tell them how to do anything like that. But I do like the idea that, at certain times of the year, monsters could be cheaper, and
Right.
or anything like, or Corn could be ascendant, and maybe Corn gets different abilities. Obviously, you could do pretty much anything you want, but it would be very cool. I guess what I'm looking for the most is a system that can adapt to changes in the meta or the community if something gets out of control. That was
Yes.
always the problem with previous editions with the points, is that one army book with one build can just dominate
For so
significantly,
long.
and with the slow release back then,
Yeah.
it took quite a while until something could come out to maybe knock that down, assuming that the next book had that capability, and sometimes you had to wait even longer. So I'm really hoping that with this match play system, there's some kind of way to help fix that.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll take into account maybe what players are suggesting, or maybe what Russ and those guys who have created the South Coast comp can give them feedback. I don't know how it's all going to be done, but that's what I'm hoping for, is it has some kind of an organic feel to it to adjust for any issues.
Yeah, I agree completely. I'm so looking forward to it. I have to believe that somewhere around the 1 year anniversary is when they're going to drop that. And I'm just really, literally almost counting the days.
I bet you it's going to drop the weekend that we're at the Slobberknocker.
Probably.
That's what it sounds like, is the 23rd, July
Yeah.
23rd.
Yeah, that would
So,
be great. Yeah, it'd serve us right for going out of town. So.
all right.
I know you guys are looking forward to the campaign, but personally, I'm looking forward to the points. I'm looking forward to my power gaming, trying to find out what's the best, cheapest unit, most powerful, spamming that, and making you guys cry.
Yeah. Yeah, you fit into 40K real easy.
What is best in life?
Exactly.
The limitations of your tooth. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, James stays hydrated on our tiers, so
At least that's wishful thinking on my part. I always like to think I'm a power gamer, but I'm probably not as good as I think I am.
well, whatever the internet says is good,
Exactly.
I'm a
Netlist.
fan of net lists.
Well, that's the beauty of the current Age of Sigmar scene, is there's not much of a net list, and when there is one that arises, and this harkens back to what I was talking about, the guys can go in and make tweaks
Yeah.
to an organic pool system.
Yeah.
So hopefully with this general's handbook, there it allows for things like that too, so that we don't see somebody spamming a bunch of flamers, or all of a sudden something like plague monks have
Yeah.
this loophole that's super abusive.
Yeah.
It's like, well, hold on, maybe we can tweak that and shut that down a little bit. Not to deny people from bringing an army that is fluffy and looks fun, or is even
Right.
competitive, etc. But nobody really wants to play against 6 skull cannons or something like that, and that stuff really can't exist. I got 3 of them. I know you have
Yeah.
several as well, so we can do it. But it's not terribly fun.
One of the things that makes me happy, South Coast GT just released 2.2.
Right.
Exactly. That's what I was going to bring up. And the changes to some of those pool choices. We saw that the
Vexilor.
Vexilor, yep, he went up in points. He was 7 first, and he went up to 8, now he's 12,
Wow.
which is pretty expensive. And
Right.
he makes you you really have to really think what you're getting from him for that kind of points.
Yeah, is that one per game teleport worth that amount of points?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking about that for the upcoming Slobberknocker GT. Is what am I going to teleport? Is it going to be worth it? I know before he was an auto include in every single list I had, and now I've been starting to write lists without him and trying to get by without that crutch.
Yeah, well, you kind of have to ask yourself, is an instant win worth 8 points, or is it worth 12 points?
You damn power gamers.
Yeah, right. Oh, I hate that banner.
love
But
it.
also, Fire Slayers got cheaper, and that's always a good thing. So the more of those dudes on the table, the better. I just got to start that army.
How are you feeling about those? A couple of the increase in points for the Iron Jaws.
That formation, the gore fist, I believe, the one that allows you to move in the hero phase, I can understand why it's the most expensive, because if I can touch on Iron Jaws real quickly,
Sure.
from my brief experience with them, I feel that with that book, you can't really run a mixed arms list. I feel like if you're going to take something like a guy on a Maw Crusher or a Gordrak and another guy on a Maw Crusher, you need to kind of surround them with the piggies. For the speed, the guys on foot are scary, they're resilient, they can pump out some damage with the brutes, and you can surround them with Ardboys, etc., for scoring units. But man, they're slow. So anything that gives them some movement, and that is the only thing that gives them movement, is that formation. There's no dude with a whip cracking it behind them to give them an extra boost or anything like that. So I can understand why it's more expensive, but I think if you're going to utilize that, then it's probably because you're taking a large foot army, multiple units of brutes with characters, with the war chanter, the shaman, dropping foot to Gork, etc., which is a phenomenal spell. I've had a lot of fun with that, but I don't think that army lends itself to like a mixed arms approach. I think you either take the fast stuff with the piggies and the Maw Crushes, or you take the all foot guys and the big mega boss on foot as well. Because you and I played a game, my first game with the Iron Jaws against your Stormcast, and it was the list you were entertaining for the Slobberknocker, and mine was just stuff that I threw together quickly to put some Iron Jaws on the table that I had assembled, and mine was kind of a mixed arms thing. I had a couple of units of brutes, a couple of foot characters, one of each of the foot characters, Gordrak, and a unit of the piggies. And Gordrak is scary. I can understand why he went up in points, but he can easily launch himself out there on his own. And he, at that point, when he's surrounded by the enemy army, he's no scarier than anybody else. He goes down pretty quick, especially to Stormcast that can pump out some mortal wounds.
But that hits the orc fluff. I mean, they should not be out on their own. They shouldn't be leading.
Right.
And
And
they should be surrounded by it.
That's why I was saying, you take, if you're going to take Gordrak, and you could even take a second guy and play hopscotch with the devastating bulk or whatever it is, which is a great rule. So it's so much fun to play those guys, but they got to have some support quick.
Yeah, that's what I found was the piggies and the Maw Crusher were out there ahead of the army, and it was kind of them against my entire Stormcast army.
Right.
And they kind of got crushed, and by turn 5, the orc boys were not even halfway across the table.
Yeah, the brutes just could not keep up, and that was with me running them every turn and what have you. So, but yeah, that's just kind of like a quick bit on the Iron Jaws and the points of the South Coast comp pack, and why I think maybe those guys went up a little bit.
Like I was alluding to earlier, the thing I like about SCGT is being updated. It means they're not dropping it just because the General's Handbook is coming out. So there is even going to be another alternative. Even if GW puts, when they put out the book, we're still going to have alternatives to play. So
Right.
awesome.
Well, like there always has been,
Yeah, exactly. They can start concentrating on actual composition like they used to in 8th, instead of spending all their time trying to
balance
From the
trying to
ground
balance
up.
up, trying to put the points on things. They
Exactly.
can start, maybe we might find more restrictive comp, but that's something that they were always good at in the past years, and they've been the best, and everyone always used them. So maybe that's what they can get back to doing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Kudos to Russ and those guys for working that so hard.
Yeah, and we're going to be using it out here. Well, we'll be playing with it at the Slobberknocker, so or a slight variation thereof.
Yeah.
And now for the local scene, where we talk about the games we play here. We ran a tournament here about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and you were the TO. Care to tell us about that?
Sure. So I ran the Trials of Ogier, Ogar,
Ogier,
whatever it is.
It's
Silly
the same
name.
one they ran at Warhammer World.
Right. So we ran that here in an attempt to drum up some support for Age of Sigmar and the local scene, and really as a litmus test to see if there was a community or who would even respond to the call. And I was really surprised. We got some guys from not only out of town, from Farmington, but we also got guys from out of state. Some guys from Colorado came down to play in a 1-day, 3-round tournament here in Albuquerque, which was pretty incredible. So a shout out to those guys for coming all the way down. So I was contacted by the guy who runs a game store here in town at Active Imagination, which is where we play. And he was contacted by his Games Workshop representative, who asked him if he had an Age of Sigmar scene going on here in town, and if so, if he would be interested in putting on an event with the Trials of Ogier. And so he let me know about it, and I said, yeah, I'll run it and see what kind of support we can get going on here. And also Games Workshop produced prize support, which was incredible as well.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, for a desert outpost like this, that's pretty crazy amazing.
Yeah, we haven't seen that since the early 2000s, I believe.
Yeah,
I mean, even in 40K, I haven't seen anything in years.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I, put it out on social media and talked to as many people as I could who I knew that had any kind of interest in Age of Sigmar, and fortunately, the format of the event, I don't really want to call it a tournament. It wasn't really that.
Yeah, I think they wanted to call it a hobby event.
Yeah,
It was a hobby event.
So we'll refer to it as a hobby event. The format of it, where you only had to have 30 models, you could only have one monster, no wizard, and there's no points or anything like that. Obviously, it lended itself well to people who were just getting into the hobby, as well as people who had already been 8th edition players and weren't sure about Age of Sigmar, because you could buy a start collecting box, or even just a box of troops and a couple characters and come up and come play, which is essentially what you did.
Yeah, that's what I did, yeah.
Right. So it was surprisingly easy to get several people to come all the way down here. Ryan from Durango came down. He was a guy that was big into the 8th edition tournament, and I know Age of Sigmar has not fared well up in Colorado.
Yeah.
And he was kind of disenfranchised with that and was interested to see what was available, and so he came all the way down.
Yeah, I think those games were actually his first games of Age
Right.
of Sigmar.
Yeah, well, he wasn't the only one. There was a couple people who it was their first games. Bill, your first games essentially of Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, that wasn't against my wife or, my local friends.
Yeah, and I think there was a couple others that...
Yeah, I think the guys from Farmington.
Yeah.
Those were their first games.
Yeah, he was there.
No, they'd been playing each other, but I think Youngblood, or was he here?
I think Youngblood had played me once before.
Did he play in the event? No, he didn't play in the event. The format did lend itself to bringing some new people in and people who were AOS curious, if you will. That being said,
It sounds so dirty.
Right. Well, some of the missions were fairly dirty. That's for
they
sure.
were.
Those were not balanced missions. That's why I think we refer to it as a hobby event instead of a tournament. All told, we had 9 people, odd number, so I stepped out to run the event, and so 8 people, pretty good showing considering it was our first Age of Sigmar event.
Yeah.
The game hasn't even been out for a year. There was a huge collapse in the community. We're coming back pretty strong. To touch, briefly on the games, the missions themselves, I think you can still find it maybe on their website.
If you just Google it, you can pull up the PDF for the event.
Yeah, if you Google the Trials of Ogier,
right.
it's there.
You can glance over it and you can see that it's a story that they're trying to tell through a series of scenarios, and those scenarios are not terribly balanced. But I think everybody had fun.
I definitely had fun.
Well,
I know everyone else I talked to had fun. My son actually played in the tournament.
Yeah.
Right.
And he had some fun. He's pretty young. He is 10. And that's actually what I really like about Age of Sigmar is I can get him into it. We can play some games. I can't imagine trying to teach him 8th edition with the 250-page rule book.
Yeah, the to hit, to wound, and everything. It's like trying to explain THATCO to people for my D&D peeps out there. But that is the great thing about Age of Sigmar is my wife has even expressed interest, and I tried showing her 8th edition, or I'm sorry, 7th edition Warhammer at one point. And I'm a terrible person because I let her play my Dark Elves, and I played Vampire Counts, And for anybody who was playing Vampire Counts at the time, knew that you had this huge rule book that everyone else had to play by, and you didn't. You just got to do essentially whatever you
Whatever you felt
wanted,
like.
which is a terrible army to try to teach somebody with. And obviously she didn't. It didn't stick with her. But since I've explained how Age of Sigmar works and how simplistic, yet it's simple, and yet there's so much game to it.
It's very simple on the surface, but when you start digging down into there's plenty of tactics you can.
It's very
Use.
deceptive.
Exactly. And
There's
she's
4 pages of core rules, and yet when you look at the sum total of all the war scrolls and everything else, it comes out to the same as 8th edition, a couple of hundred pages of rules.
Yeah, to touch on that, I actually saw somebody. I really should take notes of who tweets these things so I can give them credit. But somebody put out pictures of the core rules of 8th edition, and they fit on 4 pages.
Yeah.
Or it might have been like 5. But when you take out all the little diagrams and all the fluff and stuff like that, it's actually a fairly condensed set of rules as well. So don't let people knock 4 pages of rules for it to not be a reason to play the game. It's actually a great selling point of the game to get new people in.
At the cost of blowing my own horn, I have a YouTube video that I put out in response to Vince Venturella. His question was, why play AOS? And one of the things I cover in that in depth is it's a 4-page rule book, which means it's very, very approachable to a lot of people. But when you get the people that are used to 8th edition and 40K like myself and all that stuff, when you drill down into the system, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of strategy in this game. I always laughed when I saw those things right when the game dropped about people whining about, oh, there's no strategy in this game. There's nothing left. That's just because you're not thinking about it. But anyway, that was just me being narcissistic.
Yeah. To touch back on the Trials of Ogier event that I ran, it was a huge success. Everybody had a great deal of fun, and it did show that there is a Age of Sigmar community out there, that if you just shoot the flare into the air, people will show up for it. And now with things like the Grand Alliance forums and with podcasts, why we started this one, it's so much easier for people to get in touch with each other and play these games. Yeah, it was a huge success, a lot of fun, and it was cool getting prize support from Games Workshop.
Definitely.
So.
Oh, yeah. When was the last time? Yeah, okay. I want to say I played your son Julian in the last game. We were the bottom table, but that was appropriate. And I tell you what, he is a great player. He is one of the trepidations you have when you play someone who's 11.
10.
He's
10 years old.
Is you're always worried about that, the gaming etiquette thing. Don't pick up your dice before I, at least have a chance to sort of look at them. Your son's got.
Yeah, the kid's on point.
Game.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows how to play the game. He knows the rules. He's explaining to me what his guys do because I've never played against Vampire Counts. And
Tomb
he's saying,
Kings.
I did it again.
Which,
yes.
A footnote is Necropolis Knights smash your face and take your army
and
off.
2 Necrosphinxes.
And he did. He smashed my face with him. And he had this great grin on his face when he's saying, no, this is what he does to you. So,
yeah.
I mean, it sounds silly, and I'm not trying to, make you feel good about your kid there, but really the whole thing is not only was it approachable, but he knew it well enough that he was explaining it to me. He was telling me how these people worked.
Right.
When you got a 10-year-old who's able to not just grok the rules, but explain to someone else how it's gonna, how this goes down, that's some pretty good stuff. So
Absolutely.
And he kicked my butt. Oh my God, did he beat me up hard?
He's given me some free dental work a few times as well. So.
Oh yeah.
Chip off the old block.
Yeah.
My God, he's a power gamer in
Yeah,
training.
he is.
He's a netless therapist.
Considering the games that he has to play against his old man, though, I can
That's
see
true.
why he does that.
Yeah, but at least he's got, like Bill said, he's got that. We're working on that gaming etiquette. I think it's very important to teach the younger gamers that. I know in some of the other game systems that's not really prevalent. I know 8th edition fantasy was, there was a pretty, not rigorous, but there was do's and don'ts of the game, and I'm trying to teach him that, and teach him to have fun while kicking someone's teeth in. But it's possible.
Well, yeah,
Oh, it is.
and that's always a great thing about this genre of game that we play is that there is that social contract where,
Oh, yeah.
you can't be a jerk. You know, this isn't Xbox Live where you can talk about fornicating with other people's parents. You
Mhm.
know, over online, you gotta be a decent person to whoever you're playing with, or you can take your toys and your very expensive toys and go home and watch them collect dust.
Yes,
So
true.
it's very cool.
The tournament itself was so much fun. I had a blast, and I was at the bottom table. Should have been all day, but the first game you didn't know who was who. But anyway, James, what was your impression of the tournament? How did your games go? Not, blow by blow, but how did they go?
I thought they went pretty well. Of course, the scenarios weren't very balanced,
Yeah.
but I didn't let that influence the fun I had in the game. I think I went into that with the right mindset of I'm here to have fun. I'm here to help grow this community.
Mm-hmm.
I know in game 3, well, actually for all the games, I talked to my opponents. What kind of game do we want to have? Do you want an all out? Do you want to go, balls to the wall? Do you want to have a fluff game? What's your feeling on this?
Mhm.
I know my first 2 opponents wanted the toughest game they could have, so
Yeah.
I gave it to them. And I know for the third game, Ryan from Denver, I kind of looked at his army. I added up the South Coast points real quick and realized he was only running about 60. I had about 120
Wow.
in my
Wow.
army list, so I cut about half of it out. And it was when our game turned out, I think, pretty good. With we talked to him, what kind of game do you want? And I didn't want to take his teeth in.
Well, yeah,
That-
I mean, he
that
drove all
bad.
the way down from Farmington
Yeah.
to be there.
From Boulder, yeah. Or no, I'm sorry, Colorado
Durango.
Springs?
I'm sorry, he's from Durango.
He is from Durango.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah. We love you, man.
I think I was up front before we started that it was kind of a gaming event and that it wasn't exactly
yeah.
a hardcore tournament and that
No.
and that's the kind of feel that it was going to have and what to expect. So, and that I wanted to run a legitimate tournament later on, which
Mhm.
I was going to do until Games Workshop announced that they were going to be doing this General's Handbook. So,
Well, and we'll just get to it a little bit later than we
absolutely,
expected,
once that drops, then we're going to look into to running something
Mhm.
down here in Albuquerque.
I guess my impression of the tournament was kind of comical because my entire collection of Age of Sigmar / Fantasy was what came in the box.
Right.
So I mean, I was scraping together to put 30 models together. Period.
Yeah.
And the very first game that I played was that wide open. There was no terrain on the board whatsoever because you're playing on an ice lake.
Just a quick note on that because I kind of got blasted on a Facebook group that there was no terrain. Yeah, I know there's no terrain. It was on a frozen lake.
Yeah, it's a
And I wasn't really going to bother putting 3 inches of a shoreline
no.
on a table. It wasn't going to have any impact on the game. Sorry
Yeah.
if that didn't immerse you
Yeah, well,
into the story being told through a few pictures.
the
Sorry.
only issue I had was my frozen lake was green, not blue. But hey, I got over it really quick. What was funny in that game was I had my 30 models of Stormcast, keeping in mind that 10 of them are Liberators, 2 wound Liberators.
Broken.
Only the faithful.
Yeah. Only the filth.
Damn you. So, I don't even think I brought the Vexilor with me, but I think I may have. But anyway, I was playing up against an ogre army that he had about 3 times as many wounds as I did. So
Right.
it was pretty comical. And I would not lambaste the guy I played simply because it was new to me, new to him. We both had no idea how it was going to play out. We each had our 30 models
Right.
and yet didn't realize how much more powerful his was. So he pretty much tabled me in turn 2.
Yeah, 29 ogres and a thunder tusk.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough.
Pretty much, yeah, he was doing 6 mortal wounds just whenever he looked at me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was pretty comical. But, I mean, we actually had a blast playing that game. I've known him for a while, and we've played before in the 40K world. We
Right.
just didn't know what this game was going to bring.
Right.
And it was still fun, even though it was, completely one-sided. It was pretty comical and a lot of fun. So, the second game I played was against the guy from Durango, Ryan, and that was a little bit better because he ran half his army off in the first turn because that was his victory objectives, and then we played the rest of the game to have fun.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was 3 games that were even though they were kind of one-sided, it was a lot of fun, and you get to meet people. And that's really, I think, what AOS is really all about. Meeting people, having a great time. At no point was it ever like, I kicked your ass. No, there was none of that stuff. It was fun.
Right.
You know, playing against Julian was a blast. We knew we were on the bottom table. We were just having fun. And that third scenario where the wall of whatever it was moved.
Oh, yeah,
north.
you push it back and forth, right?
So not only did he have the better army, but I couldn't roll that initial die roll to save my life. He got it every single turn.
Oh, yeah.
I think we played 4 turns. He moved 2 feet.
Yeah.
Just based on the die rolls. It was so funny. We were having a blast.
Well,
Just a blast.
I'm glad everyone had fun, and it was such a success, and it seemed like everybody was willing to come back down here and do another event, and hopefully we can get more people in.
Yeah.
So
running something either just before the General's Handbook drops or just after, probably be really easy to double that output, that people count that we had.
I certainly hope so. I know there's a couple of slightly jaded 8th edition guys who are currently
Chris.
currently eating up Malifaux, which is a fine game. I'm not going to bash any other game, but they expressed some interest that, seeing this General's Handbook and point system and like an official air quotes point system from Games Workshop. Like, well, maybe I'll come back. It's like, you want to. Well, we got the best models, baby.
Army, so what the hell?
Exactly.
Yeah, especially after seeing some of the models. I mean, I know Chris has been eyeing my Star Dragon every time I take it down to the game store to go paint it.
Yep. So hopefully we can lure some of those guys in, and some of the 40K guys have been very curious, and I have to say one thing about Age of Sigmar is I know it's not the rank and flank it used to be, and I'm totally okay with that. When the first rumors started going around that it was going to be a round-based game, I was like, the hell with that. If they take away my square bases, I'm done with this because I won't go that way. And then I saw the first pictures of that Lizardman army that they showed from Warhammer World on round bases, and I was like, oh no,
those are gorgeous.
Oh no, those look good. And now when you play a game, to me it just looks so much better on the table.
So much more cinematic.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and it flows, and I don't know. I'm loving it, man. It's so good to me. This is the golden age of Games Workshop and the models they're putting out, the quality. I mean, like I said, I'm a fanboy. I think we all are. We love this game and the company that puts out the stuff. So, I'll leave it at that. I'm just excited about what's coming down the pipeline.
It's funny you mentioned the golden age. I was recording another podcast last night where we were talking about it's the golden age for wargaming, and that's board and counter wargaming, but there's just so many companies putting out great war games. But really, when you get down to it, in the Games Workshop realm, 40K, Sigmar, everything that they do, we really are in a golden age. The models that are coming out are incomparable. I mean, even to 5 years ago,
Absolutely.
These are so much better. And the new direction that the new CEO is taking with the company, being more open, being out there. Yes, they have Facebook pages. They're opening themselves up to the criticism and the hate and all that, and they're dealing with it. We haven't seen this kind of approachability from Games Workshop for literally 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
We really are in a golden age, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to ride the wave as long as it lasts. I love it.
Until 3D printers destroy everything. So.
Yay!
But that's a whole nother show topic. Do we have anything else that we would like to cover in our first episode?
Well, yeah. Actually, I'd like to put you on point for an idea you had.
Yeah, so something I want to talk about briefly. It's not ready yet, but it's something that I'm going to work on. And what it is something that I wanted to kind of give our listeners an incentive to listen to our show. There's so many podcasts out there at this point. Although this would be, I think, only the third in the United States after the great AOS fallout.
We're going to have $1 million prize?
Yes, in $1 increments.
Oh, crap.
What I want to do is, if any of you remember back in the days when books were a thing, they used to have choose your own adventure stories where you would read along, and at the bottom of the page, you could pick which direction you wanted to go with the story. Well, what I want to do is something like that on the podcast. And basically, I'm going to write a story, and then I'm going to get to the end of a section of it. I will read off the options, and then we'll put them up on social media on our Facebook page and on our Twitter page. And I want the listeners to give us feedback on which direction you guys want the story to go, and we'll go with the flow. We'll see where the story takes us and where I write it, etc. So I'm kind of nervous. I'm not super confident about my writing abilities. It's obviously going to be fan fiction stuff. Please don't sue us, Games Workshop.
No cease and desist.
Yeah, but I'm kind of excited about it as well because in the realms, anything is possible. You can come up with anything you want. So and it gives some interaction with our listeners. All one of them. Hi, Mom. So yeah, that's it won't be up for a couple of episodes. It's going to be a little time intensive to write out. Obviously it's not just one story. It'll be multiple stories that branch out and branch out and branch out from there. So yeah, that's kind of something that I'm really, really interested in doing.
And there's
for the
a
show.
potential there to actually, we may just get together and write some scenarios, and we'll play test them a couple of times, and then maybe release them through the same channels so that you can follow along with the story as it goes.
Yeah. So if you like any of the characters that I write and the stories or battles that take place, you can recreate them on the tabletop. Yeah.
As long as they're Stormcast, yeah, it'll be fine.
Right, sure. And there's another bolt of lightning. And there's another bolt of lightning. And they just keep dying. Wow. Anyways.
They're called Eternal for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. Nice. I like it.
So I guess real quick we can touch on our on ways you can get a hold of us.
You can find us at rollingbad.com or on Twitter at rolling_bad, or you can email us at rollingbadpodcast@gmail.com.
You can also hit us up at our personal Twitter feeds. I'm at Elric Edge. That's ELRIC Edge, all one word.
You can reach me at Bill Castello, CASTELLO.
And I'm at Tersoth, TERSOTH.
So there's all kinds of ways to tell us how bad we are at this. So, well, we're going to have an interview with Ken Eubanks from Slobberknocker GT.
Yeah. I'm speaking with Ken Eubanks, the tournament organizer for the Slobberknocker GT in Oklahoma City. It's coming up on July 23rd and 24th. I guess just tell us a little bit about the Slobberknocker for this year and the Age of Sigmar aspect of it.
Yeah, sure. This is the second time Slobberknocker has been ran. A couple years ago, it was ran by a friend of mine named Steve McElroy, and he ran it the first year. We had about 35 people show up for Warhammer Fantasy, and then life got in the way, so he let it drop off the second year, and then I kind of scooped in and picked it up whenever he didn't have time for it anymore. As far as Age of Sigmar goes in Oklahoma City, it's growing. A lot of places it was immediately met with a lot of rejection just because it was a completely different rule set. And after the great collapse of Warhammer Fantasy, a lot of people didn't really know what they wanted to do. Some people messed around with Kings of War, some people messed around with Malifaux or a few other side games. But Age of Sigmar, it's still got the universe that people know and the armies and the factions. So it's been picking up. There's a few stores that are running Age of Sigmar tournaments fairly regularly now. DZ Comics out in Moore, Oklahoma, they do something every couple weeks. I'm running a league and tournaments for them out there. Most people tend to play with the South Coast GT point system, and then we've kind of got our own rules pack called Slobber Comp that we use. Just kind of tries to reel in some of the more adventurous aspects of Sigmar while leaving as much of the core gameplay intact as we can.
Sure. Yeah, I noticed some interesting changes. One of the things I noticed was the difference in summoning and in how in your comp you can only summon one unit per turn and no heroes and stuff. How long have you guys been using that style of rule set? Addition to the South Coast comp.
We were doing the limits on summoning almost immediately. At first, whenever we were kind of looking around with a wound comp, we quickly realized that a goblin, 3 goblins don't equal an ogre. So
right.
it kind of started falling by the wayside real quickly. But, I had played Magic the Gathering and a few other CCGs, and I'd always liked the idea of a sideboard And even in Malifaux, whenever you show up to a tournament for that, you bring a faction, but you don't really bring a solid army list. Well, with Sigmar, we kind of decided that summoning was so strong because, one, it was unlimited, and two, the units that could summon typically were always available as a Swiss Army knife, and so we thought it would add much more to the list building concept of Sigmar whenever South Coast GT's comp came around, that if you had a summoning pool that was set up as part of army list construction, it really made it a little bit more tactical summoning. You might bring only big monsters, but then have a low chance of ever getting them out, or you might bring a bunch of smaller units, but whenever you're playing with a victory point style of game, that could wind up hurting you as much as it could help you. So we really tried to find a way to make summoning no better than any other regular spell in a given turn. Another thing we did was summons do nothing until your next activation when they're summoned. So if you try to go out and get adventurous with a summon, and then your opponent sweeps in a double turn, well, now you've wasted a spell, you've wasted that wizard's particular turn, and you've just given up victory points.
Yeah.
So it's no longer the best option in every scenario, and that's really what we were trying to do.
Right.
I kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, when I have to admit, when I first looked at, there was no extra pool for summoning that you had to account for. My first thought was, wow, man, that's going to be kind of abusive. I'll just throw units everywhere. But when you look at how you can only summon one unit a turn and no heroes, and then once you've played a few games of Age of Sigmar and you realize that summoning is no guarantee, it can be a bit of an issue there. So I think once I took in all that into account, I don't think it's nearly as abusive as I thought it was at first. It was something that I was going to look into possibly with the list, but I think now I'll just maybe bypass it and go for the smash face approach.
Yeah.
So a lot of the points that you get is focused around killing your opponent's army. Am I correct?
That's a part of every mission. I think Sigmar really lends itself best to scenario play. So out of 4 out of the 5 scenarios in Sigmar, the main focus this year is either objective points or doing one particular task in the scenario. But I realize a lot of players, that's not always their favorite thing to do. So whenever you look at the way the tournament points are structured for Sigmar, what we do is we do basically a keep what you earn sort of system. If you and your opponent play and you pull 20 tournament points out of the scenario and he pulls 12, you both move forward with that total. You don't take a winner and then go into a 20-0 split like a lot of games do. And so one of the things that we added is basically a secondary objective for every single round of Sigmar is, for every so many points of your opponent's army that you destroy, you pull tournament points in your favor to add to your score. So that way if you have a player who brings something like Nagash and a bunch of Morghasts, even though he's probably not going to do very well in the environment overall because he doesn't have nearly enough heroes to make most of the scenarios work in his favor, he can still make up some points by murdering things with a big undead god, so there's always that.
Sure. Yeah, Nagash has no problem killing things.
No.
Okay, so in the beginning, when you made the announcement for the tournament, there was a painting requirement. Everything had to be painted, and that has since been retracted.
It has been. The thing about Sigmar that I forgot, having played Fantasy for as long as I did, is it was aimed at bringing in new players. And I had made the false assumption that every Sigmar player that was going to show up was a converted 8th edition Fantasy player who had gobs of painted models. And so I was constantly being approached by both Kings of War and Age of Sigmar players who were still really, really new to the hobby. Many of them had told me that the only thing that had stopped them from signing up and coming to participate was the fact that there was no way they could get an army painted in time. After giving it a little bit of thought, I decided, well, if it helps Sigmar, which right now needs to have some kind of community built around it for it to get the fan base that Fantasy 8th used to, then tournament organizers need to be a little bit more accommodating than they've been in the past. And so while a person who comes in with a Horde of Grey has got a fair shot at winning Best General, I mean, it's going to pretty much eliminate them from Best Overall anyways, and most of them are okay with that.
Do you see yourself sort of mitigating that over time, say maybe next year or the year after, sort of modifying that?
Absolutely. I don't want to say that I am 100% going to follow the lead of the organizers of the bigger tournaments that come before me in the year, but I think 2 years, or maybe 3 even at that point, of both Sigmar and some of the other games that have been picking up new players, I think that's enough time to start placing painting requirements. And I imagine whenever people start seeing the prizes that we're handing out, they're all going to want a shot at scoring as highly as they can. And I would wager that most of the people who show up this year unpainted will probably be more than willing to show up with a painted army next year.
Oh yeah, it's the carrot and the stick. I like it.
Absolutely.
So, could you walk us through the painting rubric and how you're going to be taking a look at people's armies and giving them points for that?
Yeah, sure. The painting rubric, it's up on the website at slobbernockergt.com. And one of the things that I really wanted to try to make was clarity. You know, I didn't want to get into that weird argument where, oh, well, I have one model in the unit that's painted really, really well, so where is this going to drive my score? So it's going to be right there when every player walks in. They're going to have a chance to go through their own rubric. As far as the details on it go, let me have just 1 second. So it's broke down into 5 different categories. There's the general army appearance, which is basically just based on theme of your army. Is there anything tying it together? Do you have a red unit over here with sand bases and a purple unit over here with rock bases? Great, everything's painted, but it doesn't really lend to a good theme.
Right.
Then we break down into details, whether people are doing things like eyes, hilts, shields, and the more detailed you get, the more points you earn out of the paint rubric. Then you've got your basing. It's not quite worth as many points because with Sigmar, a lot of players are a fan of the clear bases I've found. It's not really my style, but a lot of players are a big fan of it, so I didn't really want to penalize those who made an aesthetic choice to go with clear monocolor bases. Conversions are a part of it, and then bonus points. Did you do anything crazy like LEDs or dioramas? Do you have a matching display board? And then I left some points that were open for our 2 paint judges, just as discretionary points, so we can kind of separate everybody out. And then, of course, if you receive any votes for a Player's Choice Award, you get 3 extra bonus points as to your painting rubric.
Awesome.
Sweet.
And what are the ratios of how you're going to do overall scores as far as points and paint and victory points and sportsmanship? How is that all going to dictate who wins overall?
You know, it's going to be about 65%. 65-75% based on battle points this year. Each of the different games at Slobberknocker has got a slightly different points makeup, just because some game communities are more focused on one aspect or another. But as far as Age of Sigmar goes, there's going to be 30 battle points available per game. You're going to have around 25 or around 35 total paint points that you can earn, and then there's going to be another maximum 20 points that you can pull on sportsmanship. Sportsmanship isn't probably going to be anything like most folks are used to. You know, typically when you go to a GT, you pull sportsmanship points for showing up on time, having your stuff, and not being a jerk while you're playing your game. I kind of feel like those should be expected when you go to a GT. I mean, just you meet a different kind of group of people. Everybody is generally really nice, so all that stuff is kind of already assumed. So for the sportsmanship at Slobberknocker, what you're going to see is a lot of rewarding folks who are really trying to be a part of the overall community. If you sign up on the designated driver list, whether you have to drive somebody or not, you earn sportsmanship points. If you decide to bring in some cans of food or boxes of food for a food drive, that'll earn sportsmanship points. If you put on a demo game of really anything, it can be boss monsters. You can show up and demo Monopoly for all I care. Just get everybody involved.
Right.
You'll earn some bonus points. I want to build a community around Sigmar more than anything else, because I feel like that's the only thing holding it back. You can comp the crap out of it and make it a really fun game to play, or you can play it open if that's what you prefer, but I just don't feel like Sigmar has got a community, and I really want to work on establishing one.
Sure. And I'm assuming there's a list of how to score these points and stuff on your website?
It's its own tab under when you go and you look at the different games documents, there's a whole section in there for sportsmanship, and it lays it out. It's everybody starts with 10 points. If you get, hey, this guy was a great opponent, and all 5 of your games, it can earn you up to 3 points. And then there's 7 different categories that you can hit for bonus points. And even those are kind of flexible. I mean, if I show up and there's somebody that's doing something that's just super awesome and was not on the Matrix, I'll still comp them a bonus point anyways. Because again, what I'm trying to do is build a good fellowship of players for Sigmar more than just have some people come out and play a one-shot game.
Sounds like a lot of fun, man. That's awesome.
Okay. Also, I wanted to talk about, is there like any kind of a hotel or special deals with a hotel out there that is going on, or is it just kind of get in where you fit in?
Actually, one of the bonus points does come from staying in the same hotel as the event will be held. It's at the Saddleback Inn and Conference Center in Oklahoma City. It's off of I-40 East and Run Meridian, I believe it is. They are giving some pretty good room rates. I think it's all on the website, and there's a special link to follow for our link. But I believe double beds are $79, which is pretty cheap for a hotel, and that comes with free breakfast too.
Sweet.
And there's a ton of stuff around. You know, one of the things whenever I sent out my flyers to other TOs and to other game stores, you know, I tried to point out that we are a couple of miles from a water park. We're a couple miles away from Celebration Station. There's downtown Oklahoma City. So even if you've got a family that you want to consider bringing with you, you go drop dice for, 6-7 hours during the day, and then your wife or whoever can go play, and there's a ton of other stuff around to go do. We're in a really good location this year.
Awesome. And then, is there any nightly events or anything maybe on the Friday night or the Saturday night that's planned after the games?
Well, the Friday night and Saturday night, they're both set for open gaming and demo. I didn't try to organize any kind of like bar crawls or downtown Oklahoma City crawls or anything like that, just because I wasn't entirely sure of the groupings I was going to get with it being my first year.
Right.
I know that Steve had run it for me a couple years ago, but whenever you have an event that's scheduled and it gets canceled, sometimes people kind of get a little bit shaky about coming back to it. So this year has just been all about getting us established, and I think next year, if we're going to do anything like that, it'll be a little bit more well planned out.
I vote for a pub crawl. That's just me, though.
Yeah, we've got a really, really good dueling piano bar here in Oklahoma City, so that
Well,
might be part of it.
I do remember reading a little something on your website about a keg pass, possibly.
Yes.
Okay.
We've got 3 kegs of brews as of yet unknown. The hotel will let me choose when it gets a little closer to ordering time, but we've got 3 full-size kegs that are going to be there for the 2 days. $20 gets you a keg hunter pass. That's all you can drink for the weekend until the kegs run dry.
I like where that's going.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess to kind of cap it off, obviously your website is slobbernockergt@. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's your email.
That's the email. And go ahead and toss that one out there, too.
Okay, yes, you can
Questions?
contact Ken at slobbernockergt@gmail.com. But do you have any other social media presence, like a Twitter account or anything that people can get information from?
I have a Twitter, and I'm terrible at using it. I remember it whenever I get a new sponsor, and I'll generally hop out and throw their name out and mention the new prize support that we got. And we've got a ton of that this year.
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit of it on the website.
Yeah, we've landed a Silver Tower kit for Sigmar. We've got a
Nice.
couple stuff collecting boxes. We've got terrain. I mean, there's a ton of stuff given away. And then there's 5 guaranteed prizes per game, too. We've got our best sportsmanship, which is going to get basically a $100 gift certificate to a good friend of mine who does painting. Her stuff shows up. Heather Lee Brent. She's in Warhammer Visions. She's been published there 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I've seen her stuff.
She's amazing, and so she's given me a 1 model voucher for each person.
Wow.
Our best painted person, I've got a friend who lives in Japan. Her name is Brooke Stevenson, and she moved there after high school to become a manga artist. So what she's doing is the person who wins best painted can pick a couple models or a character from their army, send her a picture of it, and she's going to convert it to like an A2 sized manga poster.
Oh, nice.
She's gonna pick up
That's
for it.
awesome.
Yeah, that is definitely a unique prize.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we've got our Ace Award, which is basically our best overall winner. Each of those guys has got a plaque and then some sweet game swag coming. Best General is the same thing. And then we have the Golden Screw, which is sponsored by our good friends at Hustlers of Hollywood. It's our last place prize.
Hey, that's mine.
Yeah. So that's the golden screw. Nobody's really that bad. You got screwed at some point. So
You're damn right.
that's what happens.
Nice. Yeah, I'm pretty terrible at with Twitter as well. I've had to learn how to use it all over again because of this show. So I feel you there.
Yeah, and then we've got our Facebook page too, where announcements come up from, as well as the website at slobbernockergt.com.
Well, I think that's pretty much all our questions, and got quite a bit of info for the event. I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us and let us know what's going on, and definitely looking forward to seeing you in July.
Yeah. And we're going to put all the information and all the links in the show notes so everybody will be able to get there. So,
Well, thanks a lot, guys. It was fun. I appreciate it.
So that was Ken Eubanks, the tournament organizer for the Slobberknocker GT that is occurring in Oklahoma City in July 23rd and 24th. And we will be attending that and hopefully bringing home some prizes.
and with that, I think pretty much episode 1's in the can, unless anybody else has got something to cover.
No.
No, I feel pretty good about it.
All right, we'll see how it goes. And whenever you're ready.
So that's what... Oh, I totally forgot what I was just...
That's what we know.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.